Michigan's Adventure may get laughed at for being the red-headed stepchild of the Cedar Fair chain. But there was a time before Cedar Fair took over when this park was on the upswing. This time was when the old Deer Park Funland was rebranded as Michigan's Adventure, and the coasters started rolling in. In 1997, the family-owned park went all out, and they invested $4.5 million into one of the biggest wooden coasters in the world. This was Shivering Timbers, opening its gates for the 1998 season, an impressive-looking out-and-back Custom Coasters International monster, greeting everyone pulling into the parking lot. Ever since I've been into coasters, going back over 20 years, Shivering Timbers has always caught my attention, but it seems to draw mixed reactions. Some say it's trash, some say it's among the best wooden coasters in the world. I never found my way to Northwest Michigan until July 2021, and I was able to grab 2 rides and finally experience it for myself. I came away to find that neither camp was 100% right, and this ride has a lot of, yes, pros and cons. So let's dive into it. These are the pros and cons of Shivering Timbers. This is going to sound weird, but I have something that's both a pro and a con, and that's the smoothness. Or should I say, the roughness. I'm going to sound super contradictory here, but I think it all has to do with my expectations. I went into the ride thinking it was probably going to beat me up, but it didn't. It wasn't that bad. That being said, it wasn't exactly smooth either, and by the end of the ride, you definitely feel the grind. That's the best I can explain it. It's smooth enough not to ruin the ride, but it's rough enough to keep you from marathoning it. So there's your first pro and con all wrapped into one. The second pro is the length. It's got 86 seconds of ride time. That's nearly a minute and a half from the first drop to the final brakes. If you saw my CCI Prime ride time video, this sits at the top of every CCI coaster ever built in ride time and track length, easily clearing the 1 mile mark at 5,383 feet. I mentioned the roughness grinding on you, and when you're on the course for 86 seconds, it really gets to you. But when you're waiting in line, sometimes with just one train, like when I was there, it's nice to know you're gonna get a good long ride. The second con is the repetitive layout. I knocked the B&M hypers that have the camelbacks out, the big turnaround, and then they have camelbacks on the way back, and they end with some sort of a helix. This pretty much describes Intimidator and Behemoth, and to be consistent, Shivering Timbers is kind of the same way. You don't see wooden coasters do this too often, so I guess that's unique, but the layout is 90% Airtime hills, and there's a little variety in terms of size, throwing in a couple of double-ups, one going out and one coming back. This used to have a trick track on the return trip, where the train would bank left and then right on a straight track, but that was taken out in 2017. Wooden coasters like the Voyage and Ghost Rider seem so much more well-rounded in their layouts, and they're ranked much higher on my list. The third pro is the airtime, and this is what this ride is all about, right? This is why everyone who loves it raves about it. All of those repetitive camelbacks do result in some very solid airtime moments. I rode this twice, both shortly after the park opened, and some people may think this was a bad time because the ride may be running slow. I don't feel that was the case. I had no problem with the airtime coming over every one of those hills. The ride was built for airtime and it delivers, and that's why it ranks as high on my list as it does. But there is one factor that hurts the ride's signature feature, and that's the third con, the PTC lap bars. These made my list of least favorite restraints, and they really hurt the ride experience. This is the number one con for me. I came off the ride thinking how much better it would have been with Millennium Flyers. Or if they wanted to stick with PTC, use the buzz bars. Maybe the airtime is too extreme for a buzz bar, but I can dream, right? Okay, we'll stick with Millennium Flyers. I feel you can maintain so much more room between your lap and the bar with Millennium Flyers, compared to those not so great PTC lap bars. I didn't get stapled in the station, but these are really hard to hold up, and they made it hard to enjoy the airtime. If I had a choice to smooth up the track or replace the trains, I would choose the trains. The fourth pro is the Helix. All the roughness I talked about is on the out and back section. There is zero roughness on the Helix. This thing delivers the laterals, and it's buttery smooth. After getting rattled around a little bit on the airtime hills, the Helix is a graceful way to end, and it does a good job mixing up the forces. It reminds me a little bit of Ghost Rider's Helix finale, but this one seems a little longer, and it offers laterals that aren't quite as strong. The fourth and final con is the shallow first drop. For as good as the airtime is over those camelbacks, the first drop doesn't really offer anything. I complain about Goliath's first drop at 61 degrees. Well, this one is 53.3 degrees, and it serves no other purpose than to collect that 57 mph top speed to make it through the rest of the course. You know a drop isn't good when you're in the back row, and all the whip coming over the top doesn't even fling you out of your seat. Ghost Rider is another offender of the bad first drop, even more shallow than this at 51 degrees. It would have been nice to put 10 more degrees on that drop, but at least the airtime throughout the rest of the ride makes up for it. The fifth and final pro is the appearance. It's hard to find a wooden coaster as beautiful as Shivering Timbers. You get the best angle as you're driving into the parking lot, seeing that big structure and all the camelbacks lined up one after another. I left the park and ran probably a half a mile down to the end of the parking lot just to film this, and it was worth it. It's beautiful and intimidating, and it's the perfect thing to welcome anyone coming to the park. It reminds me a lot of how people have to drive right past X2 to get to Magic Mountain, and how that could freak people out. So in the end, Shivering Timbers lands on my number 50 spot. I liked it, I didn't love it. I can't say I was disappointed, but I thought it could have the opportunity to be a top 20 coaster, and it just wasn't there for me. After the two trains collided earlier in the summer, I was just happy to have a chance to ride it on my first trip ever to Michigan's Adventure, and finally get that experience that was 21 years in the making. If you've ridden Shivering Timbers, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Which of my pros and cons were spot on, and which you disagree with? Sound off in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like. That's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you're new here and love coasters, be sure to sub, and check out the other reviews that I've done with my Coaster Reviews playlist. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, where you can chat with other fans of the channel, as well as my second channel, where I post copyright-free off-road footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.